again, friends. I would like to thank you so much for joining us while we read these lovely, confusing, often violent tales of old. I have so many lovely requests from HW, and I plan to do them all. I just have to decide which one to do first. But as I already had this one ready to go, I will have to do HW's tales in the next video. Well, at least one of them at any rate. Today we will be reading a tale called The Golden Goose, not to be confused with the goose that laid the golden egg, or the little goose girl, or the golden bird. I'm beginning to believe that many fairy tales have names that are very similar. I do hope you enjoy this one. So, here we go. There was a man who had 3 sons, the youngest of whom was called the Simpleton, and was despised, laughed at, and neglected on every occasion. Boy, people in fairy tale times really didn't like youngest sons. I do hope that wasn't actually his name, Simpleton. I mean, that's Cinderella level cruel. It happened one day that the eldest son wished to go into the forest to cut wood, and before he went his mother gave him a delicious pancake and a flask of wine, that he might not suffer from hunger or thirst. When he came into the forest, a little old gray man met him, who wished him a good day and said, "Give me a bit of cake out of your pocket, and let me have a drink of your wine. I am so hungry and thirsty." That's very forward of the little gray man. "Hi, give me your lunch." But the prudent youth answered, "Give you my cake and my wine? I haven't got any. Be off with you." So he lied, like a liar. Got it. And, leaving the little man standing there, he went off. Then he began to fell a tree. But he had not been at it long before he made a wrong stroke, and the hatchet hit him in the arm. That is a heck of a wrong stroke. How do you... Hey, whatever. So that he was obliged to go home and get it bound up. That was what came of the little gray man. Feed me or I cut off your arm? Not the direction I expected this story to go. Afterward, the second son went into the wood, and the mother gave him, as to the eldest, a pancake and a flask of wine. The little old gray man met him also, and begged for a little bit of cake and a drink of wine. But the second son spoke out plainly, saying, "What I give you I lose myself, so be off with you." Points for honesty, none for generosity. And leaving the little man standing there, he went off. The punishment followed. As he was chopping away at the tree, he hit himself in the leg so severely that he had to be carried home. Ouch. Also, there wasn't anyone there. Did he just yell a lot until they came? Then said the simpleton, "Father, let me go for once into the forest to cut wood." And the father answered, "Your brothers have hurt themselves by doing so. Give it up, you understand nothing about it." But the simpleton went on begging so long that the father said at last, "Well, be off with you. You will only learn by experience." The mother gave him a cake. It was only made with water and baked in the ashes, and with it a flask of sour beer. Et tu, mother? When he came into the forest, a little gray old man met him and greeted him, saying, "Give me a bit of your cake and a drink from your flask. I am so hungry and thirsty." And the simpleton answered, "I have only a flour and water cake and sour beer. But if that is good enough for you, let us sit down together and eat." Then they sat down, and as the simpleton took out his flour and water cake, it became a rich pancake, and his sour beer became good wine. And Simpleton just shrugged it off and thought, maybe Mom does like me. Then they ate and drank, and afterward the little man said, "As you have such a kind heart, and share what you have so willingly, I will bestow you good luck. Yonder stands an old tree. Cut it down, and at its roots you will find something." And thereupon the little man took his departure. The simpleton went there and hewed away at the tree, and when it fell he saw, sitting among the roots, a goose with feathers of pure gold. He lifted it out and took it with him to an inn, where he intended to stay the night. Yeah, I wouldn't have gone home either. I mean, after the whole flour and beer thing. The landlord had 3 daughters, who, when they saw the goose, were curious to know what wonderful kind of a bird it was, and ended by longing. And ended? Really? That is a weird way to phrase that. And ended by longing for one of its golden feathers. The eldest thought, I will wait for a good opportunity, and then I will pull out one of its feathers for myself. And so, when the simpleton was gone out, she seized the goose by its wing, but there her finger and her hand had to stay, held fast. Soon after, the second sister came, with the same idea of plucking out one of the golden feathers for herself, but scarcely had she touched her sister than she was also obliged to stay, held fast. Lastly came the third with the same intention, but the other screamed out, Stay away, for heaven's sake, stay away! But she did not see why she should stay away, and thought, If they do so, why should not I? And went towards them. But when she reached her sisters, there she stopped, hanging on with them, and so they had to stay all night. Did no one go to look for them? Why are all fairy tale parents so bad at their jobs? The next morning the simpleton took the goose under his arm and went away, unmindful of the 3 girls that hung on to it. The 3 had always to run after him, left and right, wherever his legs carried him. In the midst of the fields they met the parson, who, when he saw the procession, said, Shame on you girls, running after a young fellow through the fields like this! And forthwith he seized hold of the youngest by the hand to drag her away. But hardly had he touched her when he too was obliged to run after them himself. Not long after the sexton came their way. Oh, I know what a sexton is. We looked that up in the last story. The Shivers. He's the guy who looks after the churchyard, rings the bell, and gets pushed down the stairs for pretending to be a ghost. And, seeing the respected parson following at the heels of the 3 girls, he called out, Ho, your reverence! Whither away so quickly? You forget that we have another christening today. And he seized hold of him by his gown. But no sooner had he touched him than he was obliged to follow on too. As the 5 tramped on, one after another, 2 peasants came with their hoes from the fields, and the parson cried out to them, and begged them to come and set him and the sexton free. But no sooner had they touched the sexton than they had to follow on too, and now there were 7 following the simpleton and the goose. And he didn't notice? By and by they came to a town where the king reigned, who had an only daughter who was so serious that no one could make her laugh. Therefore the king had given out that whoever should make her laugh should have her in marriage. Fairy tale kings have really bad ideas of what makes a man marriageable. The simpleton, when he heard this, went with his goose and his hangers-on into the presence of the king's daughter. Oh, so he knew they were there and just didn't care. Got it. And as soon as she saw the 7 people following always, one after the other, she burst out laughing and seemed as if she could never stop. She is very easily amused. And so the simpleton earned a right to her as his bride. What happened to everyone else? Are they still stuck on the goose? But the king did not like him for a son-in-law, and made all kinds of objections, and said he must first bring a man who could drink up a whole wine-cellar of wine. The simpleton thought that the little gray man would be able to help him, and he went out into the forest, and there, on the very spot where he felled the tree, he saw a man sitting with a very sad countenance. The simpleton asked him what was the matter, and he answered, I have a great thirst, which I cannot quench. Cold water does not agree with me. I have indeed drunk up a whole cask of wine, but what good is a drop like that? Well, this may seem amazingly coincidental, but have I got a deal for you? Then the simpleton said, I can help you. Only come with me, and you shall have enough. He took him straight to the king's cellar, and the man sat himself down before the big vats and drank, and before a day was over he had drunk up the whole cellarful. The simpleton again asked for his bride, but the king was annoyed that a wretched fellow, called the simpleton by everybody, should carry off his daughter, and so he made new conditions. Kind of feels like cheating. What's the term? Moving the goalposts? He was to produce a man who could eat up a mountain of bread. The simpleton did not hesitate long, but ran quickly off to the forest, and there in the same place sat a man who had fastened a strap around his body, making a very piteous face, and saying, "I have eaten a whole bakehouse full of rolls, but what is the use of that when one is so hungry as I am? My stomach feels quite empty, and I am obliged to strap myself together that I may not die of hunger. Oh." You are never going to believe this, but have I got a deal for you. The simpleton was quite glad of this, and said, "Get up quickly and come along with me, and you shall have enough to eat." He led him straight to the king's courtyard, where all the meal in the kingdom had been collected and baked into a mountain of bread. The man out of the forest settled himself down before it and hastened to eat, and in one day the whole mountain had disappeared. Then the simpleton asked for his bride the third time. The king, however, found one more excuse, and said he must have a ship that should be able to sail on land or on water. "So soon," said he, "as you can come sailing along with it, you may have my daughter for your wife." Sure. Only if he carries her away on this miraculous ship. I don't like this king. The simpleton went straight to the forest, and there sat the little old gray man with whom he had shared his cake, and he said, "I have eaten for you, and I have drunk for you. I will also give you the ship, and all because you were kind to me at the first." Then he gave him the ship that could sail on land and on water, and when the king saw it, he knew he could no longer withhold his daughter. The marriage took place immediately, and at the death of the king the simpleton possessed the kingdom and lived long and happily with his wife. When was the end invented? I wonder. It's a mystery we may never solve, but one that should clearly have come into common practice a lot sooner. Seriously, how did storytellers know when to stop talking? Well, at any rate, we come to the end of this story. I now have 4 requests from HW, 2 requests from Cozy Matthew Wolfie Foxy, a friend of the channel, and 1 request from Brick's Journey. If you would like to add your favorite fairy tale or fable to the list, just let me know. I am open to anything that is not covered by copyright. Although, I did reach out to one of the publishers of Shrek. They emailed me back, but I can't make out the legalese yet. Anyway, if you would like to support me on Patreon, Instagram, or Facebook, there are links in the description. If you would like to join the few and the faithful, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can know when I release a new story. Like and share to help my tiny channel grow, and please, 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 please leave comments, as that helps to slay the dragon of algorithm that bars the way to more fairy tale lovers in the greater YouTube world of wonder. I'm doing too much poetry. And now for a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. I am here to thank you, my wonderful and amazing Patreon supporters. We now have 8. Well, sort of 10, but 3 of you are together. But it doesn't matter, because I love you all. I was so excited that I had to take the night off here in my beautiful hideaway for a nice drink. So thank you, Robinson, Ida, Teresa, Darren, Brick's Journey, Karen, William, and now Josh, Colleen, and Callum. I am forever grateful to you all. All right, cut. Phew, I think we got away with it. Wait, why are you snickering, cameraman?